Good morning and welcome to another Daily Devotions with Pastor Joe. I'm Pastor Joe, and for this morning we're going to be looking back into the life of Joshua once again, one of my favorite Bible story characters who had done so many great things for the Lord. We're going to be talking about the day that the sun stood still. Joshua 10 verses 1 through 14. It reads, "Now it came to pass when Adonizedek, king of Jerusalem, had heard how Joshua had taken Ai and had utterly destroyed it, as he had done to Jericho and her king, so he had done to Ai and her king, and how the inhabitants of Gibeon had made peace with Israel and were among them. And they feared greatly, because Gibeon was a great city, as one of the royal cities, because it was greater than Ai, and all the men thereof were mighty. Wherefore Adonizedek, king of Jerusalem, sent unto Hoham, king of Hebron, and unto Piram, king of Jarmuth, and unto Japhia, king of Lachish, and unto Debir, king of Eglon, saying, Come up unto me, and help me, that we may smite Gibeon, for it hath made peace with Joshua and with the children of Israel. Therefore the 5 kings of the Amorites, and the king of Jerusalem, and the king of Hebron, and the king of Jarmuth, and the king of Lachish, the king of Eglon, gathered themselves together, and went up, they and all their hosts, and encamped before Gibeon, and made war against it. And the men of Gibeon sent unto Joshua to the camp to Gilgal, saying, Slack not thy hand from thy servants, come up to us quickly, and save us, and help us, for all the kings of the Amorites that dwell in the mountains are gathered together against us. So Joshua ascended from Gilgal, he, and all the people of war with him, and all the mighty men of valor. And the Lord said unto Joshua, Fear them not, for I have delivered them into thine hand. There shall not a man of them stand before thee. Joshua therefore came unto them suddenly, and went up from Gilgal all night. And the Lord discomfited them before Israel, and slew them with a great slaughter at Gibeon, and chased them along the way that goeth up to Bethhoron, and smote them to Azekah, and unto Makkedah. And it came to pass, as they fled from the house of Israel, and were in the going down to Bethhoron, that the Lord cast down great stones from heaven upon them unto Azekah, and they died. And they were more which died with hailstones than they whom the children of Israel slew with the sword. Then spake Joshua unto the Lord in the day of the Lord, when the Lord delivered up the Amorites before the children of Israel. And he said in the sight of Israel, Sun, stand thou still upon Gibeon, and thou moon in the valley of Ajalon. And the sun stood still, and the moon stayed, until the people had avenged themselves upon their enemies. Is it not written in the book of Jasher? So the sun stood still in the midst of heaven, and hastened not to go down about a whole day. And there was no day like that before it or after it. And the Lord hearkened unto the voice of a man, for the Lord fought for Israel. And it's a pretty lengthy story, so I'm not going to go into too much here as I talk about it, but I'm going to do my best to be quick. But Joshua and the children of Israel had done a lot of great things. They had destroyed Ai and Jericho at this point, and were continuing on to march into the land, which was the promised land. And a lot of the kings got a little bit afraid. And this one in particular, Adonizedek, king of Jerusalem, they mention, he realized suddenly that, hey, Gibeon went in and made a alliance with Joshua. Now we're in trouble, because not only is he somehow amazingly gifted in fighting, but he's got another city here with him, and other people here who are on his side. And so he gathered together all of the kings of the area and said, hey, we all need to get in there and do something about this before he takes all of our land. Well, I would assume that normally these people wouldn't have worked together very well, because they're all from different backgrounds, all from different areas. They're all different kings of their own areas within the promised land. And kings didn't necessarily live in perfect peace back then. They probably really wanted to get each other's land, but at this particular time they said there's no other option besides peace. And so Joshua was informed of this, and he went, because they went to attack Gibeon, one of the nations, the nation that had actually tricked Joshua into making them an alliance. And they began to attack, and they got a hold of Joshua and said, hey, Joshua, we really need your help. Joshua said, hey, what do I do? And the Lord said, then spake the Lord to Joshua, right? it said the Lord had spoken to Joshua and told him that he was delivering all of the people into his hand. And so Joshua went forth to battle and fought. And all night long he charged into battle. They went in, they traveled all the way up to Gibeon to go do this fight. And the Lord had made the people very afraid, discomforted, right? And so they were very afraid from the Lord, and they lost the battle, honestly. They were to the point that they had to turn tail and run. It says in verse 11 that they fled from Israel and went toward Beth-horon, and God sent hailstones on them. So I don't know how much it hails over there, but it probably isn't very often. But it says that he sent great hailstones on them from heaven, and it was literally big enough and strong enough to kill the people. And it killed more people than what Israel had killed with the sword. So probably more than half of the army was killed just with hailstones. And then the Lord, Joshua spoke to the Lord, and he told the sun to stand still, probably at God's prompting. And the sun stood still and the moon stood still for about 24 hours. Give or take a few minutes, we don't know, but it seemed to be about a whole day by whoever was keeping track here. And it's never happened since. It never happened before that way. So what do we see here? We see that God had struck enough fear into the hearts of these kings to get them all together, so Israel didn't have to travel from city to city to city attacking the cities. Now all of the men of battle are coming out to them instead of them going to the battles. So that's one thing God did greatly for them, is prepare these kings sort of for a feast before Israel. They came out to play, and they wouldn't have done that if they would have been intelligent, or if God wouldn't have made their hearts so afraid of Israel. But they were afraid, they came out to fight, and they had the fight that they were asking for, just not the one that they really wanted. They lost. Israel defeated all of those 5 kings, the 5 kings of the Amorites, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, of Jarmuth, of Lachish, the king of Eglon, and they all got together and they were defeated before the Lord and before the children of Israel. So that's an awesome part of this story, is just that God had prepared the way ahead of time for Joshua to be able to accomplish what needed to be accomplished. And then whenever it came to the fight itself, God worked for Joshua, God worked for Israel, God accomplished what needed to be accomplished, and made the sun stand still for about 24 hours, so they had plenty of time to fight and to get the battle done before the sun would go down. Because once the sun goes down, it's pretty hard to fight. So God did a lot for Israel right there. He did a lot for Joshua, and it seems really like Joshua had been closer to God at this time and actually had come before God, because as it said in verse 8, the Lord said to Joshua, "Fear them not." And God seems to speak more often whenever Joshua is praying to him or asking for his advice. So I'm sure at this point he has learned his lesson finally, and he asked for God's advice, and God led him to go into battle to take this, because he knew that God had delivered these people into his hands. So if you have any comments or thoughts about what we've studied over today, or at any point in time, just get down in that comment section and leave a comment for me. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Leave a like if you like the video. Share it with a friend who you think would enjoy this kind of content, and subscribe to the channel if you're new here, and enjoy getting a daily devotional with Pastor Joe. God bless. I hope you have a great day, and I can't wait to see you again tomorrow for another daily devotion with Pastor Joe.